The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Podcast. It is yet another edition of The Big Issue. And of course, as usual, our in-house analysts are here. We're going to take you on the big issue of the day. And of course, with me here, you have Bode Badebo.
A pleasure to be here, George.
And of course, Chibuzo Okaibe.
Thank you very much.
You're all welcome to this program.
Thank you.
And of course, without taking much of your time, the big issue of the day takes us to Borno State, where the governor, Babagana Zulum, raised concerns over the wave of surrender by Boko Haram terrorists, saying that it has left the state with extremely difficult situations. And of course, apart from Zulum, most victims of insurgency in the state are also said to be facing a dilemma whether or not to accept the repentant terrorist. In a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Issa Gusso, Zulum said the situation required diverse stakeholders, including representatives of attacked communities, to come together and critically review the pros, cons, and implications of the surrender by these terrorists, to agree on a framework that is well thought out in reintegrating them back to the society. The governor said accepting repentant terrorists has the risk of seriously offending the feelings of victims with potentials of civil rebellion, just as there is the risk that if Boko Haram fighters willing to surrender are rejected, they can join ISWAP to swell the ranks of the fighters in the bush, and the path of peace becomes narrow. And of course, we're going to take you exactly in the governor's words so that you can be able to understand the governor's fears. Zulum said, we in Borno are in a very difficult situation over the ongoing surrender by insurgents. We have to critically look between two extreme conditions and decide our future. We have to choose between endless wars or to consciously accept the surrender terrorists, which is really painful and difficult for anyone that has lost loved ones, difficult for all of us, and even for the military whose colleagues have died, and for volunteers. No one will find it easy to accept killers of his or her parents, children, and other loved ones. In the last 12 years, we have been in this war and we have lost thousands of fellow citizens. We do not know the whereabouts of our thousands of others. We do not know whether they are alive or dead. In these 12 years, millions have been made homeless, and many wealthy farmers, transporters, and others have been rendered poor. Well, you've heard what the governor is saying. It's a very touching situation. But Chibuzo, what would you think about this wave of surrenders that have been taking place over this while? These terrorists repenting in droves. What would be your...
First, it's a good thing that it's not becoming precarious, for want of a better word. Naturally, one would cheer, that we are having people drop weapons and come out to say we want to embrace peace, we want to embrace a different kind of life. But now we are faced with a very difficult, like the governor said, situation of reintegrating them in the society, and how the people who they have caused so much havoc on would receive them. So it's a more like bittersweet experience, But what I find quite interesting and find quite notable is that at this point we still don't know how to manage the situation. One would have expected that because this spate of surrender didn't just start overnight. There were cases before now. Some time back, I think it was last year thereabouts, there were incidents of people surrendering and all that. One would have expected that a certain kind of roadmap would have been clearly spelled out on how to deal with incidences like this. So maybe the only explanation that one could have is they didn't anticipate this large number of people turning themselves over, or turning themselves in rather, and saying we want to pursue a new style of life. So, but I think it is quite interesting to see how this community is going to handle this. And I think, in the words of the governor, it's important that all of the stakeholders sit down, dialogue about this, come up with some, nice, not so, it might not be holistically acceptable to all, but at least make some progress on how to see that these people who have decided to turn in themselves, will not obstruct the lives of those any further that had to suffer for their actions.
Well, after the death of Shakao, most of these terrorists felt isolated, and most security experts believe that their surrender is a tactic to calm cool down their heels and then think of the next step forward, especially with the existence of another very powerful terrorist group, ISWAP, in the forest that were able to defeat the Boko Haram sect. And then they are now in control of that territory. So the thinking is that the surrendered Boko Haram members are doing so because they felt isolated and they are afraid of even pledging their loyalty to ISWAP for fear of being killed, not being accepted. How does government determine that those surrendered are really denouncing their Boko Haram ideology? And not because they have been relegated to the background by the new leadership in the bush, being led by the ISWAP group today.
Well, that is a concern that's a challenge rather. That's a challenge for the concerned authorities. And concerned authorities in this instance is the Nigerian armed forces, who are prosecuting the war against terrorism since 2009. Now, of course, this wave of surrender we have seen in the last 2 weeks or so is strange, even though the military has attributed development to its intensified onslaught against the terrorists. But there are other security and intelligence sources who are saying, no, we should not believe what the military is saying, hook, line, and sinker, that there could be other reason for this development, which you just pointed out in your question, that probably some of them are just tired of the war, some of them are disenchanted because no more leadership from Shekau, who is dead.
Yeah.
Some of them, having no food to eat again, so they are tired. So they now thought, please, let's just abandon this cause. Not because they are convinced to abandon the terrorism ideology. No, they are tired, and there is a need to get reprieve. So they are coming out to say, see, we have surrendered, forgive us, let's come and live in the society or in the communities again. So, like I said, this is a challenge for the concerned authorities. This is the armed forces. And I think it is important that they come clean about this. There should be sincerity of purpose. They should be able to own up, to tell Nigerians the real reason for the development we're just witnessing, so that Nigeria will be the overall winner at the end of the day. If we tell ourselves the truth, if we are able to properly profile these people and know who are sincere repentant and who are not, we'll be able to actually, curtail their potential threat. But if they are just coming to live among us, to spy again, and re-strategize to launch another war within us, that would be very, very devastating at the end of the day. It will be a war we will not be able to win at the end of the day. We could look at this one. Now, for the past how many years now? 2009 till now, upward of 12 years now, be fighting these people which we even call ragtag. At the end of the day, some of them carry weapons that are more sophisticated than that being carried by members of the armed forces. So it is there for the armed forces to come clean about this and tell Nigerians the real thing, and also tell Nigerians what they intend to do with them. Are they to put them on trial? Are they to forgive them as they are clamoring? The people are clamoring for, so that Nigerians actually get a whole sense of the whole thing and know how we will react to it.
Well, you will see, just like the Borno State governor has said, and of course, what the governor is saying should not be ruled out, because at the end of the day, the idea is that following the death of Shekau, the bulk of Boko Haram commanders pledged their loyalty to Al-Bawani, the leader of this ISWAP group. And those who did not were given a warning that they should make sure they can't pledge their loyalty or they get killed. That is why people think that they are running away from it. And then, if Borno State governor begins to raise concern, he's actually questioning the authenticity of that kind of repentance or not. Then, if you look at this safe corridor operation, safe corridor, the military authorities and the federal government in doing this, does it mean that they did not carry the state governments or governments of states in those areas like Borno, Yobe, along to say, see, we are de-radicalizing these people and we want to reintegrate them to the society?
I think Francis, who is in the Northeast, will be able to answer that very well, and he has joined us.
Yes, I think our correspondent from Borno State, Francis Okoye, is live with us on this program. And of course, we will actually get some hints from him about what is happening in that state. Francis Okoye, you're welcome to the big issue. Francis, are you there? We cannot get him actually. His voice is. Francis, are you there with us? We have a technical
Hello?
issue.
Can
Hello?
you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Hello?
you, but faintly. Yeah, please, could you just tell us the situation in Borno State? We heard what the state governor said about the concerns of the surrendered terrorists in that domain.
Yes. I hope we are getting. I hope you are hearing me.
Pertaining to this.
Are you hearing me? You are hearing me?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Now.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, Francis.
The mood here is that of surprise and shock from residents since the surrendering mood of the Boko Haram terrorists begin to occur, and there is also apprehension on the side of residents because most of these guys, some of them who are claiming to have repented now, have committed so much atrocities in the capital. And for those who were here at the peak of the terrorism in 2011,
go ahead.
Francis, go ahead. We are listening.
Maybe the network has frozen.
Well, it's like we've lost Okoye there. Back to what we were saying. It appears the military authorities in this safe corridor program for the reintegration of surrendered terrorists seem not to have carried the state government and people in most of these communities along.
I don't want to believe that the military would have just done that in isolation of having the state government and other stakeholders involved in the process. This is a very sensitive operation.
But of course, you can see the concern coming from that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's a case of hearing from every side at the moment. I still don't want to believe that the military wouldn't do a program this sensitive without carrying all of the stakeholders on board. If that were the case, then it's very unfortunate. Having said that, I think Mr. Bode pointed out something that's very critical: profiling. Profiling, I think, is at the heart of all of this. Of course, these people must account for their actions. They are not children; they are adults. And if they committed crimes, those crimes they have to pay for those crimes, because the ability of a state to ensure that people who commit crimes pay, or face the consequences of their actions as adults would send a clear signal to society that yes, society has a way of not just dealing with people who want to undermine it, but ensuring that those who are hot can begin to find closure in some way. So I think it is important that the federal government does a critical profiling of those who, were railroaded into this on the one hand, or those who were, how do I put it, deceived into joining it. Because there are variants of people involved in this. Some people perhaps were fed a terrible narrative with which they went into this. You can remember how the whole Boko Haram thing started, indoctrination thing where they felt they were fighting a cause, that was of a higher, they were fighting a higher cause. Let me use that expression. So it's important that the federal government, that the de-radicalization process is thoroughly thought through, proper profiling is done, and then we should fashion out a clear means or a clear way of ensuring that those who have suffered so much from this are not seen to be abandoned in the scramble to ensure that we take care of those who have surrendered, because it will equally send the wrong signal. In the country so far, in Nigeria, over time, what we have tended to see is that those who appear to use violent means, to call attention to themselves, appear to normally take more of the attention rather than those who decide to apply, peaceful and civil means. So it is important that that message is not sent with especially how they are going about this. If there are those, and I think the ACF has also made that point, it's not enough for people to just come out of the bushes and say we are done and we are good. If crimes have been committed, it is important that the state shows that all of its instruments to ensure that penalties are paid for deliberate actions are carried out.
Well, let's just quickly take a short break, and we'll be back in a moment.
The big issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome to Leadership Podcast. And it is a big issue. Of course, we just quickly took a short break to do some little bit of publicity there. And of course, the issue of the day is the concerns raised by Borno State Governor on the wave of surrender of terrorists in the northeast, especially in the state. And of course, it's like we have Francis Okoye back, our correspondent in Borno State. Francis, welcome back. Please, can you actually give us update of the situation in Borno State?
Yeah, the situation here in Borno is that everybody is in apprehensive mode since these terrorists begin to make their surrender. And there is no much celebration from people. Rather, people are questioning the nature of repentance of these very so-called terrorists, repentant terrorists. And so many opinions are urging the government to ensure that these people are taken out of the surroundings where where people are living. They should be after they are taken to Gombe, the safe corridor operation, they should be taken out. That they should be taken elsewhere, and there they can locate them and keep them there for years, because it is dangerous to bring them back here. There are people who, most of them have killed their brothers and sisters. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, where were you, Francis?
Okay. There are people who have lost their relations, loved ones in the hands of these very guys, and most of them are known in the city. By the time they return back to that very communities now, it is going to be another kind of rebellion that will be raised. So this is part of danger that the state governor, in his response, said that Borno is in really difficult situation, because, like he pointed out there, if you refuse to accept these guys, then the rest of them that are in the bush there will not come out. So the only alternative now is, the major challenge now is, how is government going to profile these people and rehabilitate them? Where are they going to keep these people? Are they going to keep them back with the populace? And the populace are not interested in that. Even the Shehu of Borno, in his last utterance, made it clearly that yes, it is easy to forgive, but it's not.
Well, you've heard it all from our correspondent in Borno State, Francis Okoye. Of course, he's telling us the mood in that place. And of course, you can agree, because many, even the United Nations, believe that it is a tough sell for the government, because it is
to forget the lives, the lost ones that were killed by this.
Francis is back. Francis is back. Sorry for that technical hitch there. We are finding it difficult getting our correspondent there to be stable in this program and then update us on this mood in Borno State. Back to the studio here. Like I said, 12 years of insurgency war, where 35,000 persons have been killed, according to reports. And of course, about 390,000 displaced. You're not saying that you're allowing these people who committed this atrocity to come back, giving them amnesty. Then you reintegrate them into the society after reforming them. Is amnesty acceptable for terrorists?
Well, I think it is important we understand the position of the armed forces. Like Chibuzo pointed out earlier, those they are talking about to benefit from amnesty, or those under the Operation Safe Corridor, which is meant for de-radicalization and reintegration, are people who were arrested in the course of war. They were captured by Nigerian troops and profiled, discovered to have been conscripted into the terror war against their personal wish. Those are the ones, targeted for Operation Safe Corridor, to be de-radicalized and to be reintegrated. Now, the latest development about people surrendering is a different ball game. And that is why earlier I said it's left for the armed forces to come clean and tell Nigerians what they want to do with these people.
Yes, you can see what the Senate Committee Chairman on Army, Senator Alim Dume, recently he himself kicked against this de-radicalization program, saying that there had been instances where some of these terrorists that had been
reintegrated and they go back to their old ways.
Went back to their old ways, committing even more atrocities. I thought there is one who they even said went back to slaughter all his family members. So at the end of the day, how can we be sure that the people that have been reintegrated, or all these people surrendering, by the time they pass through the Safe Corridor program and they are reintegrated, will not come and pose as danger for those communities? I think that's a concern of the
people. And it's a valid concern. It's a concern that's going to go on forever. It's just like people who have fought wars, even conventional wars. People who have gone through the experience of it leaves a scar on your psyche. It leaves a deep scar on your psyche when you engage in that kind of process for a long time. And so there's no way of saying, okay, this person is going to behave this way or that person is going to behave that way. Because we all have our different makeup, psychologically distinct. But it doesn't stop the concerned authorities to do a review of the mistake of the past.
Exactly, the whole process.
This process is new to us. I'm not sure we had this kind of experience even during the Civil War. So it's important that the authorities sit back, reflect on the mistakes that were made in the deregulation process, look out for the lapses that were made, and begin to improve on them. If they have to get more psychologists, they do so. Because I think it's more of a mind thing than a physical thing.
Exactly.
You have to have the required number of psychologists to sit with them, do intense monitoring of these people, keep them, incubate them, if you will, so that they can properly be profiled. And in doing that, there's also a need to sensitize the larger public, because I think the concerns raised by the governor, to the extent that, I see perhaps where he's trying to come from, the pulling them out rather than making them go further under if they get rejected. So perhaps, in my estimation, I think what he's trying to say is, let's embrace them so that they all come out and then we figure out a way of dealing with them, other than society rejecting them or scorning them, and then they go deeper under and the war continues. More money, more lives, and all of that. Yes, fine and good. But like I said earlier, it is important that the people who have suffered the impact of their actions are seen to also get to be able to get closure from this. Because if that is not done, you are creating a bigger, there's a likelihood of a cycle coming all over again. So I think, government should look into things like this.
Well, of course, we're beginning to get comments from our viewers out there, and of course, some of them flash. We have Joe Kam Chiwe Gina. He said they should be punished irrespective of voluntary surrender, because if not all criminals in Nigerian prisons, but if not all Nigerian prisoners, all prisoners in Nigerian prisons should be pardoned also. That is justice. You hear what Job is saying there? And of course, Abdulaziz Ali Shehu said, let them face justice. And of course, we have Uriel Ezekiel, who is saying the surrender of banditry and Boko Haram is very suspicious because these people are looking for some other way to take the government unexpectedly. And that can be very dangerous for the nation. I just pray that what happened in Afghanistan does not happen in Nigeria. And of course, we have Blog here. Blog is saying they should be jailed. This can't happen in any advanced country. We are talking about people that have killed innocent Nigeria, brought so many to pain, so many families. They should be jailed. Of course, you can see what.
In fact, George,
yes, what do you
the,
you can
the,
see
why we are even
see the mindset
why
of
we are even
Nigerians out there.
discussing this in the first place is the show created by the military last week or so. They started this by even parading the terrorists, the surrendered one, and placing placard in their hands with inscription begging for forgiveness. That show was uncalled for, and it was insensitive to the sensibilities of the victims of terrorism.
Exactly.
It was uncalled for.
Exactly.
And that is the beginning of this, discussion whether they should get pardon or not, all this and that. The military made a mistake. They made a serious mistake by putting up that show. In fact, it shouldn't have been the military in the first place. The military itself suffered, lost personnel, lost everything in this war. So it shouldn't have been the military who now line up terrorists with, state managed, please forgive us, this and that.
Asking for
that was offensive to the sensibilities of Nigerians, millions of Nigerians who are related directly or indirectly to the victims, thousands of victims of
who themselves who are victims because most of them have been displaced.
Exactly. Lost families, lost things, lost life, and the rest of them. So the most important aspect of this discourse is justice.
And I see, and another problem again is that let's look at this situation. Nigeria has a very poor record of data collection, and that is where this idea of this military program for repentance militants, the Operation Safe Corridor. You see, now people are questioning the competence of that program. Do we have enough technology? Because it seems that it will even be impossible to monitor and follow these surrender terrorists. Like in developed countries like the US, what they do most times is that they put chips in them
to
monitor them, their activities, and know whether actually they are really fit to live in a society of civilized people. Well, how can the government keep track of all these surrender terrorists to ensure they don't pose a threat to our society?
Like you pointed out, there's only one way they can do that, to improve on what they have already, or to seek the best expertise on how to get that done. But there's even a bigger problem. All of the people that they are mopping up now, that are calling out, where are they going to keep them? What are facilities like? What are facilities like? So that's why people at times, it's shocking that the government isn't as foresighted, if you will, as they ought to. And I think it's worrisome. How are they going to keep these people? Do they have the facilities to ensure that these people are? Anyway, we can only hope that the best brains prevail on this and they open up themselves to better ideas on how to handle them.
Yes, the people of Borno State are between a rock and a hard place because at the end of the day, you cannot even end the war.
No, that's another mistake. We are not limiting the discourse to Borno State. No, we are talking about issues that poses threat
to the entire nation,
to national security. It's not Borno.
Of course.
Yes, Borno governor spoke. He only raised an alarm. It's beyond Borno State.
Yeah, of course. Let's just say Nigeria.
Exactly.
It's between a rock and a hard place. Because a situation where you even say, no, we won't accept these surrender terrorists. And you say they go back to the forest. If they are rejected, they will still go back, reinforce themselves, and say, since we have no hope, then total destruction.
No, a criminal cannot walk into your den and you allow the criminal to go back. Nobody is saying they will not accept them. What the Borno State government is saying is that they can't just surface from the blues and just join the normal society like that, as if nothing happened. No. So that's why in the beginning I said in my own intro that it is left for the armed forces, which is in charge of the prosecution of the war, to come and tell Nigerians what it intends to do with the terrorists. Now they are under custody, they've been arrested, whether it's surrender or not, they are under custody. Because they've shot, they can't go back. So what do we intend to do? What does our law say about this? But at the end of the day, whatever we're doing should actually have people at the focal point that victims of terrorism must get justice. And that will make everybody's afraid now to calm down. And of course, there won't be any rebellion as is being feared by some experts. But if you just treat them as if nothing happened, of course, some people can retaliate, anything can happen, then we are endangering our lives. They become a threat to us again. So that's what we're talking about.
Well, that is the much we can take for today's edition of the Big Issue. And of course, today's big issue is a very sensitive one. It is the one that calls for concern, not just for Borno State governor and the people of Borno State, but for all Nigerians. Because if terrorists are wrongly reintegrated into the society without proper legalization, we will all be in trouble. And of course, that is left for you Nigerians to actually join in the debate, come up with very useful and constructive solutions to what the military can do in their safe corridor program to ensure that the reintegration of surrender terrorists is properly done in a way that the society remains safe for you and I. For now, that is the much we can take for the big issue of the day. And of course, I will not fail to thank our in-house analysts that have done a very good job analyzing, interrogating, and scrutinizing the situation. Chibuzo, thank you. It was a very wonderful time being with you.
Thank you very much.
And Bode, you have always remained cerebral. Thank you. So, join us same time tomorrow for another edition of the Big Issue. For now, it's goodbye.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.